When I told my host about our 11th best ranked game, he said, interesting. Well, it's interesting indeed. Welcome to Summer School, Club Fantasy's best ball podcast streaming exclusively on YouTube. I am your host, Austin Amandolia. Here with me, as always, is Matt Record. This is another CRAM session focused on a Week 17 matchup. Make sure you like and subscribe so you see every Week 17 matchup we have and are discussing. Today, it's our 11th ranked game, and boy, oh boy, it's the Las Vegas Raiders versus the New Orleans Saints. Yes, I am surprised they made it to 11th, but I kind of love this matchup. Even though we've ranked them 11th out of 16, it's a fun one to me. I'm very intrigued by how it's going to go. The stats and betting lines for this matchup, it's a 43-point over-under that ranks 13th out of the 16 games. Not great. Las Vegas, believe it or not, are 2.5-point underdogs. I believe it, given their quarterback situation. Combined weeks 15 and 16 total, indicating their playoff strength. It is 178, which ranks 14th out of 16. Not a lot of upside in these matchups, according to the betting markets. However, the ADP is where things get interesting with these matchups. The ADP of the first player off the board in this matchup is the middle of round 2, and none other than Chris Olave. And this is a dome game. If you've been keeping track, there have been a lot of outdoor games discussed up until this point. This is a dome game. It's one of our first dome games. We gave it a 5.1 out of 10 in our ratings. Matt, tell the story. How does this matchup go well? How does it reach?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised the over-under is only at 43 because when I think of these two teams going into this year, their defenses aren't great. Yes, there are questions at the quarterback position, right? But, Derek Carr, maybe he still throws it. He throws pretty well no matter what, and Gardner Minshew can show up in big times if he's still the quarterback in this week 17 matchup. So I think this goes well. We just have a offensive barrage with, with these bad defenses. And I think this is just a fun game. It's just an interesting game.
Yeah, I think it could be a really interesting game and a fun one. I think the way that it goes well is that we see the Derek Carr revenge game. Honestly, like he shows up the way he used to when he was back in actually playing for the Las Vegas Raiders, and that ends up in allowing them to pop off in this event. So I think that could help this game be a little bit back and forth. And honestly, I don't care which quarterback is starting, but I think if Aidan O'Connell is starting, I feel fine about this. If Gardner Minshew is starting, I feel fine about this. Those are two guys that they can sling the ball a little bit. So it could be a gross matchup, but it could be a fun gross matchup. Sometimes you just need a little bit about that. What about the flip side? How does this matchup go poorly in your eyes?
Yeah, there's a very real chance that both teams are completely out of contention. Who knows with the NFC South, right? What's going to happen with the Saints? But there's a chance both teams are out of contention and they're both trying to see what their young guys are doing, especially at the QB spot, because I think we all know Derek Carr is not the long-term solution there in New Orleans. So if you have a couple of real bad quarterbacks and, they're not playing their star players, they don't want to get hurt, which I think is happening less and less nowadays, but there's a chance. And yeah, you just have like a little slugfest, and this gross game ends up being just that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the other potential way that this matchup goes poorly is there's a good chance that both of these coaches don't make it through the season, right? These coaches, they got stuff to prove. So you could have a matchup where both coaches have been fired and they are just making their way towards the end of the season. They're mostly trotting out their talent to see what they have for next year and focusing on testing out players and not as much on necessarily winning the game. Although that does mean that, those players will be playing tough. So there could be some value there, but it could end up being a slogfest if these teams are doing poorly by that point of the season. But if we are matching this, or if we're drafting these teams, which I've been drafting these teams, what are your favorite ways to stack and correlate these players?
Yeah, I love the Las Vegas wide receivers where they're coming off, because Devontae is coming off at wide receiver 14, which is crazy. He has proven that he's kind of quarterback proof. And again, both Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew have proven they can throw and show up. So, getting Adams as maybe your second wide receiver there at the wide receiver 14 feels real tasty. And then, I'm wearing Patriots gear, Patriots fan. Jacoby Myers going off at wide receiver 58. Like, he's another guy that he's not going to be the ball hog, right? And I know there are other new acquisitions on the Raiders, which we'll talk about in a bit. But like wide receiver 58, like he'll have 1 or 2 weeks. That's all you need.
Yeah, I think that's a very solid way to go about this now. With the stacks on this matchup, I'm not so much stressed about the quarterbacks. There's been a lot of research to say when you're stacking players in best ball, it's just about getting players from the same team. You don't necessarily need to get the quarterbacks. So maybe I will draft a Garner Minshew, a Derek Carr, and Aiden O'Connell towards the end of best ball drafts. But what I am looking at is just the players in general. And I think getting Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara, those are 2 great players to get. They're going to get the most target volume of anyone on the New Orleans side of the ball. So I love grabbing those 2. And you said it, Jacoby Myers, like those 3 right there, I just feel so great. I feel solid in them. A late round guy, A.T. Perry, is an interesting character for me, but I think when I've been drafting this matchup, more often than not, I'm ending up with some combination of Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, and Jacoby Myers because those 3 just feel so solid, and it feels like they are very valuable at their ADP. Speaking of, Matt, who is the best value at ADP in this matchup?
Who is the best value? I think I will go with, Rashid Shaheed. I'm going to go with Rashid Shaheed at wide receiver 53. I know with the Scott Fishbowl scoring settings, Shaheed's been getting a bunch of shine on the internet. But he's more than just a returner. Like he's a dynamic playmaker on a team that drastically needs someone else other than Olave and Kamara to break out. So where you can get him again at wide receiver 53 is kind of a scratch off ticket. You're probably drafting him as your 6th wide receiver. But I think he has a real chance to pop off a few times.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick, but I'm going to go with the guy we've already talked about a ton, Jacoby Myers. He's the value in this matchup. I drafted him probably more than I should because of his value. He's at wide receiver 58. He goes off the board after Rashid Shaheed. I think people are just forgetting, like, this guy was good when he got the opportunity last year. And he was at times outperforming Devontae Adams. Like, it was between him and Myers and Adams of who is going to pop off, get that 20-point game. And so I love where he's being drafted. I'm not afraid to overdraft him. If he ends up being on my roster 30% of the time, like, he's basically free. I feel really great about that. On the flip side, who is the biggest trap in this matchup? Who are you avoiding? You think that they're gonna trap you?
Yeah, it's sorry, Faith, but it's Brock Bowers. It's Brock Bowers going up as tight end 10. I love his upside long term for dynasty. But like, have we not proven time and time again that tight ends are no guarantee? I know Laporta really worked out. Kincaid really worked out in their rookie years. That's the exception to the norm. Usually it takes people some time to, get acclimated to the NFL and be good. So I just don't, the tight end 10 just seems too high for me. But interested to hear what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I usually try and go somewhere else from that so that we give you some different answers. But I agree. That's exactly what I was thinking. Brock Bowers. I don't want to buy too much into the Sam Laporta model. Look, he had a historic season. We said this with Kyle Pitts a few years ago. Kyle Pitts had a historic season. They're historic seasons for a reason. I don't want to bet on that necessarily happening again. And I think more to the point, like, I think Sam Laporta had the success he did because he was used well within that offense, because Ben Johnson was the offensive coordinator and knew how to deploy Sam Laporta in a really effective way to get him all the usage he got. I don't think it's guaranteed that every offensive coordinator is going to be able to do that. So yes, I think Brock Bowers was the best tight end in this class. He would have been the best tight end in last year's class and probably the best tight end in the class of 2022. Like, he is a great tight end. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. However, I don't feel good about drafting him where he is headed currently in ADP. So I agree he is a trap. Now, biggest question mark about these teams.
QB. It's QB.
Yes.
It's I mean QB and coaching. Like who knows what these teams will look like by the end of this year. Um, Again, the Saints could be in it, right? Like that division is seemingly open enough, unless the Bucks, kind of run away with it, or the new look Falcons. Like it's just a weird division. So like, just who's going to be the quarterback in Week 17 and who's going to be coaching?
Yeah, I think that is great. That is very accurate, very to the point. I'll go a little bit of a different direction on this one. I think my biggest question mark in this matchup is, can Zamir White be a 3-down back? He is currently being drafted as if he is the clear number 1 running back in this offense. His ADP is up at running back. I lost him. I had him. Running back 23. The next running back for Las Vegas going off the board is way down in Alexander Madison, who is being drafted all the way down at running back 66. It's like a 40 spot difference between the two of them. So my question is Zamir White actually going to be that 3-down back? I'm not certain about it. I think, he's going in like the 7th or 8th round, so maybe the value is fine given that, but I'm still a little bit nervous about it. So I don't know that I will be putting all of my eggs in the Zamir White basket. Other teams you need to be targeting if you're drafting Las Vegas and New Orleans. First off, Las Vegas plays Atlanta in Week 15 and the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 16. New Orleans plays Washington in Week 15 and Green Bay in Week 16. And the thing I want to highlight most here is that the Atlanta Falcons and the Washington football team play each other in Week 17. So if you are targeting Vegas and the Saints in this matchup, you can get a 2-for-1 punch. You can get some Week 15 correlation for both matchups with Atlanta and Washington and get another Week 17 correlation, which I have done a time or two, and it's a little bit fun to play it that way. But that's going to be all for this episode. Before you go, again, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and look out for our next episode where we are breaking it down. We're in the top 10 now after this one. We'll be breaking down our 10th favorite Week 17 matchup. And for Matt Record, I'm Austin Amendolia. This has been Summer School, and until next time, remember, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy football, and best ball wins money. See you next time.